James Madison Leininger was born on 10 April 1998 in San Francisco, to Bruce Leininger, a human resources executive, and Andrea Leininger, a resume writer, homemaker, and former professional dancer. The family moved shortly thereafter to Dallas, Texas, and then to Lafayette, Louisiana. James's expressions of past life memory manifested mostly between the ages of 2 and 5, following the move to Lafayette. The combination of his detailed memories and the ability of the parents to verify them through painstaking research makes this a particularly interesting case, and it is one of the best known of its kind in the Western world. When James was 22 months old, as reported by his parents, his father took him to the James Cavanaugh Flight Museum in Dallas. There he was transfixed by the sight of the World War II planes, and at the end of the visit had to be forced to leave. Passing a toy shop when James was just shy of 2 years old, his mother noticed a display bin filled with plastic toys and boats. She pulled out a little propeller plane and handed it to James, adding, "Look, there's even a bomb underneath it." He said, "That's not a bomb, Mommy. That's a DWAP tank." Sick. Talking about this with her husband later, she learned that a drop tank is an extra fuel tank fitted to an aircraft to extend its range. Shortly after turning 2, James began having nightmares as often as 5 times a week, in which he would scream and kick his legs in the air, crying, "Airplane crash, plane on fire, little man can't get out." At 28 months, in response to questions, he told his parents the little man was himself and that his plane had been shot by the Japanese. About 2 weeks later, he added more details. His name had been James, he had flown a Corsair, and he had flown from a boat, whose name he gave as Natoma, which, despite sounding Japanese, he insisted was American. Over the next 3 months, James added that he had had a friend, a fellow pilot named Jack Larson, and that he had been shot down near Iwo Jima. In play, James crashed his toy planes into furniture, breaking off the propellers. He also began expressing his memories in art, obsessively drawing naval aerial battles between Americans and Japanese, in which planes were burning and crashing, bullets and bombs exploding all around. These were always WWII scenes, with propeller-driven aircraft, not jets or missiles. He named the American aircraft correctly as Wildcats and Corsairs, and referred to Japanese planes as Zeeks and Bettys, explaining that the boy's name referred to fighter planes and the girl's name to bombers, which was correct. He sometimes signed the drawings James III, and when asked why, said he was the third James, an apparent reference to him following James Huston Jr., that is, the second. When buckling himself into the back of the car, he would often mime putting on headgear, a movement that his mother recognized during a visit to a local air show, when he mounted the cockpit of a Piper Cub and put on the pilot's headgears. A devout Christian, Bruce Leininger was uncomfortable with the idea of reincarnation and began to research his son's statements in the firm hope of ruling it out. He was already aware that the Corsair was an American WWII-era plane. Searching the internet, he discovered that the USS Natoma Bay was an aircraft carrier that served in the Pacific and Waitu, taking part in the Iwo Jima operation, and that a pilot named Jack Larson had been based on the ship. He then began to approach Natoma Bay veterans, who proved forthcoming. An initial candidate for James's memories, Jack Larson, turned out, however, not have been killed in action. Attention then shifted to James McCready Huston Jr. of Pennsylvania, who had been killed near Iwo Jima, age 21, and whose life James's statements seemed to match. An exception was that Huston was shot down in a FM-2 Wildcat, not a Corsair. Veterans could recall no Corsairs on Natoma Bay. Nor could the details of James's account of the plane being shot down be confirmed. However, a visit to Huston's sister Anne Barron uncovered a photograph of Huston standing in front of a Corsair, confirming that he had flown this aircraft. Clinching testimony came from eyewitnesses who had seen the plane was hit in the engine, which exploded in a ball of fire before it crashed, confirming James's account. A unit logbook recording the crash can now be viewed online. At a reunion of the Natoma Bay pilots, James recognized one of them, Bob Greenwalt, by his voice. Anne Barron also verified other details James had made earlier about his previous family, including the problems caused by his father's alcoholism. After speaking with James, she became convinced that he was indeed her brother reborn, from his knowledge of facts known only to Huston, such as the existence of a painting by their mother of Anne as a child. According to the Leiningers, James suffered a nightmare on the anniversary of Huston's death. He made statements about 2 memories of the period between incarnations. First, he said he remembered choosing the Leiningers as his parents, and gave some veridical details of the time prior to his conception, including correct details of a hotel on Hawaii they had been staying at during a vacation. Second, when his parents asked him why he had named his 3 G.I. Joe dolls Billy, Walter, and Leon, he answered, "Because that's who met me when I got to heaven." The parents later learned that 3 squadron mates of Huston who had been killed prior to his own death had been named Billy Peeler, Walter Devlin, and Leon Connor. The case of James Leininger is one of the most compelling and well-documented instances of a child reportedly recalling a past life. Follow for more.